All right, here's a short video on how to do a negative feedback loop on a VHT Special 6 Ultra. Pretty much everything that I talked about here also applies to the Special 6 and actually the other special line of amps, the 1220 and the 1220 RT, although things are in different locations on those other models. Anyways, first thing to do is to make sure your electrolytic caps are properly drained so you don't shock yourself. And one way to do that is to heat the amp up, get it working, and get all the tubes warmed up. And then while leaving it in high power mode, you then shut the amp off, and they'll auto drain. But always verify it with your multimeter just to make sure. Get your multimeter out. And then the other way is to use a little jumper like I've got here. I got a 22K resistor in there just to keep it from arcing when I touch. And I attach one end to the chassis, and then the other end I go and I touch this side, the B plus side of all those big caps. Hold it there for a few moments and it drains the caps down to safe working levels. All right, enough of that stuff. There's basically two steps to doing a negative feedback loop. The first thing you got to do on these Special 6 amps is reverse a red and blue wire that comes from the output, or goes to the output transformer. And I've already done it here. Here's the blue wire. It attaches right here. And here's the red wire attaching to pin 3 of your 6v6 tube. So they've already been swapped, but the stock amp has it the other way around, where the red wire attaches here and the blue wire attaches to pin lug 3. So that's the first thing you do is you desolder both wires, you pull them out, and you swap them around. And just when you do this, just know that there's also another blue wire that attaches to lug 3 that goes up to the standby switch. So both of those attach to that lug. There's 2 holes in that lug. And so, I think this wire was in the upper hole, and then I attached the red wire to the lower hole. The stock amp, there's a big glob of solder there. It's hard to figure out exactly what is what, but it's looking a lot cleaner now. Anyway, that's important. If you don't, you're going to be introducing positive feedback, not negative feedback, and the amp will squeal. So that's how you know you got it wrong. Now that applies on the Special 6, and actually I think on the I know on the RT, the Special 1220 RT, you don't need to do that because, well, I guess it really depends on where you're going to inject the negative feedback. But anyway, so that's that. Take care of that. Take some, decent soldering skills, because you're dealing with small stuff and you got to reach in there and you try to clear the wires out of the way. I actually disconnected these wire ties, and I made more room to get in there with my soldering iron so I didn't singe the wires. And then I put these wire ties back on here to clean it up again. Now the next part is this yellow wire right here. And it runs right up here to the switch that lets you change the ohms of the speaker out. And you want to attach to the yellow. And there's a lug on the back of that switch where there's one yellow wire on one hole, and there's a hole in the back, which is where I attached my lead here. And I've got a 33K resistor right there. Let's see if I can get that to focus. There we go. And I soldered it to the wire, and I shrink wrapped the little solder joint. So it's 33K, 3 orange bands. Now you can run anything from 22K, even less, up to 56. I'd say 22 to 56 is the normal range. I like 33K. Okay, so you attach that there. That's the source of it. And then you're going to inject it onto your second 12AX7 tube into pin 8. And you can tell pin 8 because there's already a yellow wire here that runs up. And this is basically your cathode wire. And here's your cathode resistor. And hard to see, but there's a cathode bypass cap up there as well. Now I leave that cathode bypass cap in place. A lot of guys talk about, negative feedback, removing that cathode bypass cap because it sucks up a lot of the negative feedback or whatever. But I can tell you, it definitely works if you leave that there. Then you're maintaining the tube's power and the drive, if you take that cathode bypass cap off, it really weakens the gain of that tube. So I leave it there, and I still inject this negative feedback, and it definitely works. It has the effect you want. And if you want more, you lower the value of that resistor. And if you want less, you raise the value. I determine that the value the amount of negative feedback I like, using a 100K pot, variable resistor, and you attach a couple leads to those lugs right there. And when you turn it up, you're raising the resistor value. And right about there is where 33 is on this, and then you attach, one end right up there, right up at the source on that yellow wire. And then I actually attach the other end right up here, right in between that resistor and the yellow wire. And I played around with it and find out what value you like. Play it a lot, take your time, sleep on it. Your ears get fried, sleep on it, try it again the next morning. Figure out what you like for a value, play around with this. You're not gonna hurt anything. You go to 100K and it's still putting a little bit in there, but it's almost like not having any negative feedback at all. And then don't forget, it's not a linear pot, at least most of them aren't. This is an audio pot, so it increases logarithmically. So there's just a small difference here between like 22 and 33. It's all like right in this range. So find where you want, and then you can put your own meter on here and see what the value is, and then choose the closest resistor to that. All right, so that's it. Pretty simple. It makes a huge dramatic effect. I mod my amps to run with distortion. I've made some other changes. My next mods are in the tone stack. I've actually already changed the slope resistor right there. I can talk about that in another video, but I'm still tweaking that, or about to do my changes I like to do there. But I run this thing in distortion, and a lot of people say, well, don't you prefer it to be raw and wild? And actually the opposite is true. When you run a lot of distortion, negative feedback really helps clean up the tone and civilize it, and kind of helps reduce some of the harsher overtones. All the Marshalls, all the best known Marshalls have a lot of negative feedback actually. So I think it's a good thing to do on all these VHT Special amps. None of them have negative feedback, and it's a nice thing to do. Even if you're running clean, you like clean tones, I think you'll like it. It cleans it up, makes it more hi-fi sounding. So it's a good mod. It's really not too hard. Before you unsolder anything, take a photo so you remember what it was like. So if you screw it up and you're trying to put it back together and you're like, well, where did this wire go? Well, at least you have a photo reference, if you're not real good at reading schematics. And it can be a little complicated converting a schematic to, the real world with all this spaghetti of wires and going, well, what is this and where is that? So it takes some practice. So take a photo first, then do your soldering. All right, I hope that was helpful. Talk to you soon.